Farmers thousands of years ago discovered something that modern irrigation companies don't want you to know. They buried logs, just ordinary rotting wood, underneath their soil, and their crops survived droughts that killed everything around them. No pumps, no pipes, no water bills, just wood buried in the ground. And it worked for 20 years without a single intervention. This ancient technique has been quietly used across civilizations from the Amazon rainforest to medieval Europe, and right now, homesteaders and backyard gardeners are rediscovering it and getting results that are genuinely shocking their neighbors. Here's what nobody tells you when you set up a garden. You can water every single day, spend a fortune on drip systems, and still watch your plants struggle through a heat wave. That's because conventional watering sits on top of the soil and evaporates before it ever reaches the roots where it actually matters. But what if your garden had its own underground reservoir? One that slowly released moisture directly into the root zone, exactly when the plants needed it, automatically, without you doing a single thing. That's not a fantasy. That's what buried wood does. And once you understand the science behind it, you'll never look at a fallen branch the same way again. The technique is called Hugelkultur. It was formalized by Austrian permaculture designer Sepp Hölzer, who farmed at nearly 5,000 feet elevation in the Austrian Alps, a place where the growing season is brutal, frost comes early, and the soil is unforgiving. While conventional farmers around him were fighting the mountain, Hölzer was thriving. His secret wasn't expensive equipment. It was rotting wood buried under mounded soil. His farm became so productive, so self-sufficient, that agricultural universities started sending researchers to study him. The Austrian government, at one point, tried to fine him for farming methods that defied their regulations. He fought back. He won, and the method spread. But before Hölzer, indigenous people in the Amazon had already been doing this for over 2,000 years. Archaeologists call it terra preta, dark earth. Ancient Amazonian civilizations buried massive amounts of organic matter, charcoal, and wood debris into the naturally poor jungle soil. The result was soil so fertile, so moisture-retentive, that it's still more productive than surrounding land today, 2,000 years later, even though the civilization that created it is long gone. Researchers from the University of Bayreuth have studied terra preta extensively and describe it as essentially a self-regenerating soil system. The wood doesn't just hold water. It transforms the entire underground ecosystem. So here's exactly what happens when you bury a log. In the first year, the wood begins to decompose. Fungi move in first, specifically mycorrhizal fungi, the same networks that connect plants underground and allow them to share nutrients and water. These fungi begin breaking down the cellulose in the wood, and as they do, they create a sponge-like structure inside the log. A single cubic foot of well-decomposed wood can hold up to a gallon of water. Now imagine burying 4 or 5 logs in a raised bed. You've just installed a hidden reservoir holding 5 gallons of water underground, water that releases slowly, steadily, and directly into the root zone every time moisture levels in the surrounding soil drop. By year 2, something even more interesting happens. Bacteria begin colonizing the decomposing wood, and they generate heat as a byproduct of their metabolic activity. This is not a small effect. Gardeners who've built Hugelkultur beds consistently report that their soil temperatures run several degrees warmer than conventional beds, which extends the growing season on both ends of the year. You can plant earlier in spring. You can keep growing later into fall. In cold climates, this is the difference between a 4-month season and a 6-month season. Some gardeners in the American Midwest report harvesting vegetables in November from Hugelkultur beds that their neighbors abandoned in September. Now here's where it gets even better. As the wood breaks down over years 3 through 10, it releases nitrogen, potassium, phosphorus, and dozens of trace minerals directly into the surrounding soil. You're not just storing water underground. You're creating a slow-release fertilizer system that feeds your plants continuously for years. Cornell University's Soil Science Department has published research showing that wood decomposition in soil creates what they call a nutrient pulse that can dramatically increase plant-available nutrients compared to unamended soil. The plants don't just survive. They explode. And this is the part that makes fertilizer companies deeply uncomfortable. A properly built Hugelkultur bed needs almost no external inputs. No purchased fertilizer. No irrigation system. No soil amendments after the first year. The system feeds and waters itself. A family in Missouri documented their Hugelkultur garden over a 5-year period and found that their water usage dropped by over 80 compared to their conventional garden, and their yields doubled. They posted their results online. The post went viral in the homesteading community because people couldn't believe the numbers until they started trying it themselves and getting the same results. The wood you use matters, but probably not in the way you think. People always ask, what type of wood is best? And the answer is almost anything. Hardwoods like oak, maple, and fruit trees decompose more slowly and hold their structure longer, giving you that 20-year timeline. Softer woods like pine and poplar decompose faster, releasing nutrients more quickly, but building up the sponge structure in just a couple of years instead of 5. What you want to avoid is black walnut. It contains a compound called juglone that inhibits plant growth, and any wood that's been chemically treated. Beyond that, the wood you have is the wood you use. Fallen branches from storm cleanup, logs from a tree you had to take down, brush pile material that you were going to burn anyway. This is a system built entirely from what most people consider waste. Here's how you actually build it, step by step, starting from scratch. First, choose your location. Hugelkultur beds work best oriented east to west, which maximizes sun exposure across the entire growing surface. The bed should be at least 4 feet wide, so both sides are within arm's reach from the edges, and you can make it as long as your space allows. Dig out the top layer of soil, about 6 to 8 inches deep, and set it aside. You're going to want it back. Next, lay down your largest logs first. These become the structural core of your water reservoir. Pack them as tightly together as you can. You want minimal air gaps at the base. On top of the large logs, stack smaller branches, filling in the gaps. On top of that, add a layer of wood chips, leaves, straw, grass clippings, any organic material that will decompose relatively quickly and begin building soil microbiology. Some builders add a thin layer of finished compost at this stage to inoculate the pile with beneficial microorganisms right from the start. Now replace the soil you dug out, mounding it over the wood. This is important. You want a mound, not a flat bed. The ideal height is between 2 and 4 feet above the surrounding ground level. This mounding serves multiple functions. It increases surface area for planting. It improves drainage so roots don't sit in standing water. And the slope itself creates microclimates. The south-facing slope warms up fastest in spring, while the north-facing slope stays cooler and moister through summer, which means you can grow heat-loving plants and cool weather plants on the same bed simultaneously. Water the bed thoroughly after building. This initial watering does 2 things. It settles the soil around the wood and eliminates large air pockets that could dry out roots. And it activates the microbial communities that are going to make the whole system work. Some builders add a top dressing of straw mulch after this initial watering to reduce surface evaporation while the bed establishes itself. Then you plant. The first year of a Hugelkultur bed is the 1 year where it needs a little extra attention. The fresh wood is still dry at its core and hasn't yet developed the moisture-holding capacity that makes the system self-sufficient. Water as you normally would during the first growing season. But watch what happens. Your plants will grow faster than in a conventional bed almost immediately because the mounded soil drains exceptionally well and warms up faster. By fall of the first year, the decomposition process is well underway and you'll start seeing the moisture retention effects kick in during dry spells. By year 2, most gardeners report they're watering significantly less. By year 3, many report they've essentially stopped supplemental watering entirely except during extended droughts. One permaculture educator in Tennessee ran a controlled experiment on his property. Identical plant varieties, identical spacing, identical sun exposure, in a Hugelkultur bed versus a conventional raised bed with high-quality purchased soil. He measured soil moisture at root depth daily for an entire growing season. After a 2-week period with no rain, the conventional bed soil moisture had dropped to 12, close to the wilting point for most vegetables. The Hugelkultur bed soil moisture was still at 34. The conventional plants were visibly stressed. The Hugelkultur plants looked like it had rained yesterday. There's a variation of this technique that's changing what's possible in truly harsh climates, and it comes from the dryland farming tradition of the American Southwest. Instead of building a mound, you invert the concept and dig a trench, fill it with wood, and plant directly into the filled trench. This sunken Hugelkultur captures rainfall that runs across the surface, funneling it directly into the wood reservoir. In areas where annual rainfall is under 15 inches, gardeners using this swale Hugelkultur combination are growing food crops without any supplemental irrigation at all. That's in near-desert conditions. The Tejano-Awadam people of Arizona have been using variations of this sunken wood and organic matter planting strategy for generations, farming in one of the driest inhabited regions on the continent. When researchers from the University of Arizona began documenting their traditional farming methods, they found productivity levels that defied what should have been possible given the rainfall data. The underground organic material was the answer, functioning exactly like buried logs, holding every drop of rainwater that fell and releasing it slowly across the dry months. Now let's talk about scale, because this is where things get genuinely exciting for people thinking beyond the backyard. Commercial farmers in Germany and France have been implementing Hugelkultur principles at field scale using modified subsoil plowing techniques that incorporate wood chip material 2 to 3 feet below the surface without building above-ground mounds. The results from a 10-year study published in the European Journal of Agronomy showed that fields with incorporated wood material showed 40 lower irrigation requirements and maintained yield stability during drought years when neighboring conventional fields suffered significant losses. The researchers concluded that subsoil organic matter incorporation could be one of the most cost-effective climate adaptation strategies available to European agriculture. Think about what that means for a moment. The world is facing an agricultural water crisis. The Ogallala Aquifer, which supplies irrigation water to much of the American Great Plains, is being depleted 8 times faster than it recharges. Farmers in Kansas, Nebraska, and Texas are watching their wells drop year after year. Entire farming communities are facing the prospect of losing access to irrigation water within the next few decades. And the potential solution, or at least a major part of the solution, might be something people figured out thousands of years ago in the Amazon, burying organic material in the soil to create underground water storage. The economics of this matter too. A commercial drip irrigation system for 1 acre costs between $2,000 and $5,000 to install, plus ongoing energy costs for pumping. Maintenance and replacement costs add up over years. And it still doesn't solve the underlying problem of aquifer depletion. It just uses the depleting water more efficiently. Hugelkultur-inspired soil building, by contrast, uses material that is either free or nearly free, wood waste that farmers and municipalities are often paying to dispose of, and builds a system that improves with time rather than wearing out. If you want to start this weekend with almost no investment, here's the minimum viable version. Find any fallen wood on your property. Even small branches 2 inches in diameter will work. Dig a trench in your garden bed 18 inches deep and as long as you like. Fill it with the wood, layering smaller material on top. Cover it with the soil you dug out, mounded 6 inches above the surrounding grade. Plant directly into it. That's it. You're not going to see the full effect in year 1, but by year 2 you will notice the difference, and by year 3 you'll be showing your neighbors the bed and explaining to them why it never seems to dry out. The farmers who figured this out didn't have irrigation systems. They didn't have weather apps or soil moisture sensors. They had observation and patience. They noticed that the areas where trees had fallen and rotted into the ground grew the best crops year after year, even in dry summers. They started doing it intentionally. They passed the knowledge forward. And somewhere along the way, as agriculture industrialized and the focus shifted to inputs and machinery and chemical solutions, the knowledge got buried, almost as literally as the logs themselves. It's coming back now. Not because of any corporate initiative or government program. Because individual gardeners and farmers started doing it, documenting what happened, and sharing the results online. Because the numbers are too good to ignore. Because when you watch a plant root into a log that's 2 years into decomposition and come out the other side looking like it's never experienced drought stress, you understand in your bones why this works. And you want everyone you know to try it. Start with 1 bed, 1 trench. A few logs you were going to leave at the curb anyway. Bury them. Cover them. Plant into them. Then wait. Water normally for 1 season. And watch what the second summer tells you. The logs know what to do. They've been doing it since before anyone was farming.